Alright, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Arctic Pauper Show. I am your host, Arctic Ghost, and this week I'm bringing you Blue-Red Delver Skred. I'm just calling it Delver Skred, really. So there's Delver Blue, which is mono blue, and then I'm calling this Delver Skred because it's mono blue Delver, but it splashes for Skred and Lightning Bolt, and then a bunch of good red cards in the sideboard. I think that this is one of the best decks in the format right now. I just got second. I just split the finals yesterday in Tiny Tim's Pauper tournament that happens on Sundays. And round one, I faced off against Red Deck wins, and I got really, really unlucky against the deck. Like game one, I had two Spellstar Sprites in hand, and my opponent never had to cast a 2-drop. Never had to cast a 1-drop the whole time until they were able to draw third land and were able to Lightning Bolt my Spellstar Sprites, so that was fun. And I never saw Lightning Bolt or a Skred in games 1 or 2, because game 2, I think I had to mulligan down to 5, and I was just upset, didn't want to play. So I was thinking of dropping it, I was like, I'll stay in for the leaderboard. And I played against... Hold on. Okay, I played against... Is it Blitz in round 2, and I lost game 1 because of a misplay that I made. I made a bad judgment call, and then I sideboarded into like a different sideboard plan. Like this deck can actually take a different role against decks like that. So I basically just became a heavy removal deck, and my main win conditions were just Stormbound Geist and Volshock Morningstar, and I won games 2 and 3 due to that. Because I was just killing everything that he had, and he just ran out of gas. Then I faced off against White Weenie, and White Weenie was a really hard fought matchup. I won game 1 because I just had too much. Game 2, I was stuck on 2 lands and lost, and then game 3, okay, and then game 3, I was in a really, really bad spot, and I got down to I think 1 life. And I was like, I just need a Swirling Sandstorm. And I went Swirling Sandstorm, and I won the game a couple turns later. Then I faced Boggles 2 games in a row. So I faced Boggles the first time. And now, as you may guess, this deck has a horrible, horrible, horrible Boggles matchup. Because once they stick something on a Boggle, that's it. You're not removing it. There's no Aura Flux. There's no Curfew, there's nothing in this deck to actually kill it. So if they stick an Ethereal Armor and a Rancor, Ancestral Mask, all that, you're going to die. Game 1, I was able to beat down my opponent because they never drew a Trample card. And I had enough counters in my hand at that point that Trample would never have resolved. And then Game 2, they just kept a bad hand, and I had a pretty decent draw, and I just won the game with a bunch of Spellstar Sprites. And then against Boggles in top 8, game 1, my opponent decided to... Oh, my opponent was stuck on 1 land, so I took advantage of that. And then game 2, my opponent decided to trade really early with my Delvers. I'm not sure why, but I guess they figured that they only need 1 creature, where I actually need a bunch of time, and they can just slap a bunch of stuff. And, I ended up winning that game because I just countered everything that they did, and I just burned them out to death with... I'm sorry. Yeah, and I just burned them out. So then I faced off against a really cool Slivers deck with that was splashing blue for Distant Melody, which I thought was really, really, really cool. And so game 1, I just killed everything, countered everything. It wasn't very close. And then I think I lost... No, I didn't lose game 2. Game 2 was kind of interesting. So my opponent has the Sliver that gives flanking, and they play multiple poisonous Slivers. So I keep chipping away, and at the end of like turn 7, I've played all 4 Lightning Bolts, killed all the Sliver guys, I killed all the Sliver dudes, and then my opponent just starts to brick off, and I just start to get a bunch of good removal going, and Never drew Swirling Sandstorm, never drew Electric or anything like that, and I just won the game. And then I split in the finals because I was just so damn tired at that point. But the finals would have been myself versus Burn, and I think I should have a decent matchup against Burn. The problem with Burn is that main deck I have 3 dead cards in Skred. They don't really do much except for like kill Thermal Alchemist or kill the Marauders, which isn't very good anyway. And then out of the sideboard, all I have is Hydroblast. So I don't even really have enough cards to bring in and take out. I guess you could bring in like a relic to like draw a card or something, but yeah, Burn is not a horrible matchup, but it's not the greatest of matchups. I was not playing with this list. This is the list I was originally trying out, but I decided to try some cards. The Deprive yesterday was a Logic Knot, which, yes, I know, Logic Knot, Swirling Sandstorm, but the reason behind Logic Knot was I wanted a 5th counterspell, and Daze was not good enough, especially as a 1-of. And Logic Knot was better than Deprive because bouncing a land back can sometimes be a pain in the butt. And so Logic Knot was just a guaranteed 5th counterspell. Even with Swirling Sandstorm, it was fine. But I think I'd rather just have Deprive instead of Logic Knot, because there were times where I drew Logic Knot early and it just wasn't very good. And then I had a second Brainstorm, but I quickly went back to the third Ponder. Because, I mean, even with the shuffle effects, Brainstorm's not good. Brainstorm's not that good. That's obviously it's a good card. A lot of people play 4 Evolving Wilds. I decided to go to 3 because I kept on having hands where I would draw like a bunch of these lands and I would be too slow, and I went back to the 9th island. I was trying out a Snap. That didn't really work out too well. Yeah, Snap's not great. I tried having... I had a Stormbound Geist in the main over a 3rd Augur Bolus. Don't do that. Augur Bolus is actually really good in this deck when it works. And it's actually really good in the format. It's a 1/3 that blocks everything. And Volshock Morningstar. This is something that I saw somebody else trying, I think, in a Delver deck. And this card is the bee's knees. Because that +2 toughness is really good. Outside of Bone Splitter. So I think it's worth trying, but I could be wrong. Stories, let's break this deck down piece by piece and see what we're working with. So for the 1-mana creatures, we have the usual Delver of Secrets and Fairy Miscreant. Pretty standard. Delver of Secrets can win the game on its own, and Fairy Miscreant, of course, is just great because it combos with Spellstar Sprite, and you get to draw a card for every one after the first one you have in play. Looking at the 2-drop creatures, you have Spellstar Sprite, of course, just can be 2-mana counterspell for easier casting costs, which is just insane. And you have Augur of Bolus. Augur of Bolus is the new addition from MM3 because it was made into a common level card. Now, you have 19 creatures, which, yes, does make Augur of Bolus kind of bad, but you should have at least a spell in the top 3. So you should usually have, like, 2 spells and a non-spell, or, like, 1 spell and 2 non-spells, which is perfectly fine, I think. As long as this card isn't, look at the top 3, rearrange the bottom of your library in any order, it's a good card. I will admit that. Then you have Ninja the Deep Hours, because this card's stupid when it works. So yeah, that's the creatures. Pretty standard mix. Looking at the 1-drop cantrips, you got 1 Brainstorm just to work with the shuffle effects and flip Delver. And then you got Ponder Preordain. You know what these cards do. You know why they're here. I shouldn't have to explain them. Then you got Counterspell. I'm just not gonna explain that card. Then you have Deprive. It's just the 5th Counterspell. It's just pretty much what it is. 2 Gush. I can say yesterday was the first time I've ever cast a Gush, I think, in my entire life of playing Magic. Almost 18 years of playing Magic, I have never cast Gush for the full 5 mana until yesterday, I think. What glorious times. Yeah, Gush is in here just because it's a free draw 2 cards and it's really, really useful. Volshock Morningstar, because like I said, all of your guys are weenies, so you're going to have to pump them, and being able to pump the 2 toughness is really good. It puts the Ninja out of bolt range, it puts the Augur out of bolt range. Great, can't stop yawning. Puts Delver when it's flipped out of bolt range. It just makes all your creatures better attackers in the air. And then you have your burn spells. You have your Skred, which pretty much can kill almost anything by playing a number of lands, and you have Lightning Bolt because it's Lightning Bolt. It's 3 damage, go to the head, or pretty much kill almost anything in the format. As far as the mana base goes, mana base is pretty straightforward. You got Evolving Wilds as fetch land. Ash Barrens is a cycle fetch land. It's pretty good. I think Ash Barrens is much better than Evolving Wilds, to be honest, but that's just me. The reason is because you can bluff with it in your hand, and if you actually just for some reason need the extra colorless mana, you can, like if you need a land untapped that turn, like you need 4 mana, you have 3 mana, you can cycle it and still have 3 mana, you need like 4 mana, you could play it, and at worst case scenario, you could probably return it with Deprive later on in the game. So that's the main deck. It's pretty straightforward, pretty stock. As far as sideboard goes, you got 2 Hydro Blast for red decks, Power Blast for blue decks, a couple of Gorilla Shamans for affinity, Electrickery because it's Electrickery. Swirling Sandstorm is a great, great card. It really does help you against all the aggro decks, whether it be Elves, Slivers, Stompy, Affinity, anything that's an aggro deck that's, going to give you your run for your money. It's pretty damn good. I would definitely try it out. You have 1 Relic of Progenitus just against graveyard strategies. 1 is really all you need, and with 3 Ponders, 4 Preordains, a bunch of card draw, you should be able to find it, and 1 Skred, just to bring in when you need the 4th one. So that's the deck. It's pretty stock. It's not a foolproof deck. It's basically a deck where it's like, as long as it works the way it's intended, it is one of the best decks in the format. It can have pretty clunky draws, and it can be slow, and it can lose to its mana base. It can lose to just, not having red mana and drawing your red spells and things like that. But, what variance aside, this deck is incredibly powerful. But don't take my word for it. I'm going to try to show it to you. We're going to take this into a couple test matches, and we're going to see how it goes. So, thanks so much for watching. I'll be right back.